Good evening, everyone. I will now call the August meeting of the Crime and Gun Violence Prevention Task Force to order. Thank you all for being here this evening. With that, I will start off with roll call. If we could go down the row and start at the end and state your name.
Keith Rice. Eugene Swenson.
Darrell Redmond.
Jalen Drury.
Leticia Sessoms.
James Cullen.
George DeGroat.
All right, thank you. Now, next item on the agenda is the approval of the July 28th meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Seconded.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right. Next item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. I have been told that we do need to make a couple of edits to tonight's agenda. According to the agenda, it says we're in the 6th floor conference room. We're actually not in the conference room. Obviously, we are in City Council chambers, and so we do need to amend tonight's agenda to reflect that as well. And so can I get a motion to amend to reflect the location?
I'll make a motion to amend it to reflect the actual location of the meeting.
All right, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, and then I'm going to suggest one other change. If we can move committee updates before the discussion so we can make sure we have enough time to hear from our speaker tonight and to have a proper discussion. And so if we're all in favor of that, could someone make a motion to move committee updates to the top of the agenda, please?
I'll make a motion to move committee updates to number 1 after the call to order.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
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 All right, thank you. I believe I need to make one more motion to adopt the agenda, correct? I think I do, since we did that. Okay. Now, do we have a motion to adopt tonight's agenda?
A motion to adopt as discussed with the amendments so that the committee updates would actually be one, let's say, echo on the agenda.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. With that, the first item on tonight's agenda is the committee updates, and I will actually start off with Mr. James Cullen for our Community Engagement Committee.
Thank you, Chair. And I don't know, and I'll ask Ms. Matthews, I don't know whether or not she was able to queue up some of the changes that we put up. Chantel, are you able to get that up there? The things that we said? Okay. So while she works her way over to that, the Community Engagement Committee was tasked at the last meeting to begin creating surveys of the community. And there was some discussion as to where we wanted to go or what kind of things we wanted. So members of the Community Engagement Committee met in the time between then and now, and we've come up with 2 different products that are in front of you. One is a community strength assessment with public safety focus. The other one's a gun violence community safety survey. So what you should each have in front of you is a draft with our suggestions of things that should be on there, but by no means is that a finished document. So what we're looking for is input, and I'll defer to the chair for how you would like to go forward with getting that, because I don't want to waste too much time here. But perhaps some sort of defined time frame for the members of the commission to look through these and say, is there something that I feel needs to be on there? For example, I want to know whether the people we're surveying is left-handed, or whatever it is that you want to ask. That we look through this, that we come up with ideas and suggestions. So these are the questions that we have in the draft form that you see in front of you, but separately, and Ms. Matthews, I don't know if you can bring that up, but we also have given an example of how this would look if going out to the public. And if you can bring that up on that screen, or not. She's working on it. Okay, so that's loading now. So, because one of the questions that we have is how is this going to be received in the public? If it comes out looking like this, it's going to go nowhere quickly. But if it's something that's interactive, it's something that you can, have your phone tap it to somebody if you're in dealing with them on the street, just a first encounter. If it's something you can have a QR code. We've got a lot of different ideas. If you give someone, like every 100th person to complete it gets a gift certificate. I don't know, but different ways there are to try to get the public to engage on this. But we wanted it to be more interactive and easy to use both on a phone or from a computer. So we've created an opening. It opens with a video, and again, this is just a sample of what we could create. But it would open with a video explaining what it is, because statistically speaking, people now will engage more with videos than they will with just raw text on a piece of paper. And then after the video, it's got simple click the boxes, or the ability to fill in boxes. And I am filling in time right now, hoping that we're going to have it come up on the screen. Not looking too good? Okay. So we will email around for everyone to look what this would look like, when it was received, if it was received, on your phone or on your computer, however you would look at it. And then the next question that we'll have, once we've gotten the answers to where we want them to be, is legally, to meet FOIA and to meet the information collection requirements and storage of the public documents and data that we'll be creating. The next question is, how do we put this out? Is this something that we're going to be putting out through, say, marketing, through Mr. Glagola? Because I know the city's engaged in other surveys and has gone down that path before, but we need to make sure that what we're doing is...
Hello, and thank you for taking a
There it is, okay. So we don't see a video, but that's okay. If you want to just roll the audio, I'll tell you what people would be seeing, believe it or
moment
not.
to help improve our community. We're inviting residents to share their thoughts through the Community Strength Assessment Public Safety Focus Survey. Your answers will help us identify the strengths, resources, and partnerships that make our neighborhoods safer and healthier. It only takes a few minutes, and your voice will help guide real change. Together, we can build a stronger, safer community for everyone. Thank you for being part of the solution.
And as you're hearing that, you're actually just seeing someone, it's a drone shot of, just panning down and across the landscape of Portsmouth. And then the survey floats up underneath it to let people start clicking and interacting. But we just felt like if it opens with something like that, there's more chance that people will take an interest because they're going to hear something and see something in motion right away. So that's where we're at. That's what we have here, the two documents that you see in front of you. And what we're looking for at this point is input and suggestions for changes or suggestions for strikeouts or whatever it may be. And I don't know if Commissioner Redmond wants to add anything about the source or genesis of some of the questions that are on there, or past successes using some of the questions that are already in there. That would be your cue. Anything you want to add about the source of some of the questions that we've come up with, or why these were successful in other venues?
So I know we was tasked to do a needs assessment about how can we address violence. But one thing that I thought about is that a lot of times these communities that's plagued by violence actually have strengths as well. So how do we engage, not just going into a community and find out their needs, but find out the strengths, so how we can work on the strength to actually get to the needs? Because a lot of times coming with the needs assessment, it looks like a community doesn't have anything going on. So after having conversation and dialogue, we was able to create it, even to breaking it down to locality, so that we can see the needs, because every community needs is different. Every strength of that community is different. So how do we get that with overlapping it with some of the data that we have to actually address these concerns when we're addressing violence inside communities?
Right. So in military terms, and it's kind of worked its way over into the private business community, it's a SWOT analysis. Is exactly what we're talking about, SWOT. So that's what we have, and I defer to the chair for the best way to try to get these, to get input from the members of the committee, or sorry, of the commission, to decide how do we want to mark these up and get them back into a product, and then we can answer the next question of how do we want to get that product out legally.
Well, thank you, Mr. Cullen, and thank you to the Community Engagement Committee for putting that together. Want to make sure there aren't any other questions from anyone else before I share any thoughts. Any questions or feedback from Mr. Cullen and the Community Engagement Committee? All right, seeing none, I guess my question for you, Mr. Cullen, is there a Community Engagement Committee meeting on the calendar for the month of August already?
There's nothing on the calendar.
Okay, and so I was going to ask for a suggested timeline for the Community Engagement Committee to be able to properly edit the survey and get that back to the commission. What would that look like ahead of the next meeting with edits and suggested edits?
Yeah, if individuals, if the commissioners can look through this, we could have something turned around as soon as we get answers back from the commissioners. We could have this by this time tomorrow if everybody went home tonight and started saying, I like this, I don't like that. But a reasonable time period of a couple of days would result in an almost immediate turnaround of a product that would be ready to go out. The question then becomes the how.
Yeah, I agree with you. So yes, sir.
One thing that me and Mr. Cullen was speaking about when we were having the conversation is also about the legal logistics on how to do it. So that was a conversation that we had because we know a lot of this has to go through legal terms to be that. So being able to vote on it and then getting through the legal process before we're able to advertise it to the community.
Yeah.
Fair point, Mr. Redmond. And I think my suggested way to go about this is all of the members of the commission to provide feedback to the Community Engagement Committee, and then we can go up the line to make sure that all of the questions that are being asked is proper legal-wise, whether we're working with the city manager's office and working with city council to make sure that those questions are proper, and how is the best method to be able to put those questions out to the community. And so I will recommend that if we could provide feedback to Mr. Cullen and the Community Engagement Committee on the questions that he shared, and it's also going to be sent out, if we can provide that feedback to him by Friday of this week,
Sure.
noon on Friday, so that way they can get that back to everyone else next week with those updates.
Yes.
And we can work with the city manager's office to be able to see and make sure everything is proper and okay.
Excellent.
Does that sound good, everyone? Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Ms. Sessoms, are there any updates from your committee?
No, we're just continuing to add providers and resources to our existing list of agencies within Portsmouth and outside of the Portsmouth that helps to combat gun violence. Also, over the past week, we've had some trainings under Safer, not Safer Together, Portsmouth United. Portsmouth United. Dr. Jordan came. She did some trainings for the violence interrupters and also the clinicians, and then on Friday and Saturday, the faith-based group. So this week, they're also having trainings as well. So that's just the latest update that we have for intervention.
All right, thank you, Mr. Reverend.
Also, she wasn't there on the first training, so Mr. Vaughn from Lawnmower was here on Monday and Tuesday with a community engagement training that was facilitated here as well.
Thank you, Mr. Redmond. Are there any questions for Ms. Sessoms? All right, seeing none. Our next committee is resource allocation, which I chair. There aren't any updates specifically around resource allocation. I shared at the last meeting what we were working on. I will have some updates to share towards the end of the meeting regarding an email that I sent out to everyone last week in terms of next steps for this body, and I think an area of focus that we should shift to over the next couple of weeks leading into the fall. And so I will save those comments towards the end of this meeting as well. And Ms. Patillo, who is the chair of the Data and Metrics Committee, is not present, and so we don't have any updates from that committee at this time. All right, that's it for our committee updates. Our next item on the agenda is tonight's speaker, which I will ask Ms. Matthews to introduce if we can. Okay.
How y'all doing? Our speakers today are professionals that's been in the field of CVI for decades. I want to introduce them as experts. One of them is a social scientist. The other one is someone who's trained more CBI organizations in the United States than anywhere, and they have been trained internationally. And personally, I want to introduce as my brothers, my friend, my comrades, Dr. Chico Tillman and Marcus McAllister.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. I like that, Commissioner Redmond. That sounded good over there when I heard that from Mr. Commissioner Cullen. So and we want to definitely have some open dialogue with you guys. We got a presentation that's not long at all, but as Commissioner Redmond said, my name is Marcus McAllister, and I run a company called McAllister Consultancy and Training, where we train and help implement CVI organizations all around the country, nonstop. We're always working with different cities. As I mentioned earlier to the chief and the mayor, I'll be in Kansas City next week. So I'm always on the run doing this work here. I've been in this space 23 years. Also a pastor, so I'm proud of that. But I also serve as the Dean of Students at the University of Chicago for our newly Community Violence Intervention Leadership Academy. It's one of a kind. It's the only one in the country that is helping leaders in CVI expand their territory to be able to work ecosystems in their respective cities. So just an honor to be here. I'm going to let my colleague introduce himself, and then we have some PowerPoints that he'll lead us on. We'll both be here to kind of take some questions and just be of any assistance we can be, but it's an honor to be here with you guys, and thanks for having us.
Hey, how everybody doing? My name is Dr. Chico Tillman. Currently, I'm the Executive Director of the Community Violence Intervention Leadership Academy housed inside the University of Chicago Harris School of Public Policy. Been doing this work for about 15 years and had the opportunity to not only create, really help us rethink about what CVI is, working with the Department of Justice and the White House and the previous administration to help design it, but also help write the policy in order to get the funding for cities, counties, and municipalities throughout the country, designing what CVI is as we transition from violence prevention into CVI. My background is in criminology, law, and justice, and I've been designing CVI organizations or violence prevention organizations for the last 10 years throughout the United States and internationally. And we could run through it. One of the things I want to start with is really like, what is CVI? And you could, when you think about it, one of the reasons we came up with the term of CVI is during the time we had this influx of funding coming in about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, we were having, a small group of us was having a conversation with the last administration, the White House and the Department of, not the Department of Justice. First, we was trying to figure out where should the money go, but also who should it go to. Initially, it was CDC because we were housed under violence prevention as a public health approach. However, the challenge with it being under the CDC and HHS was that violence prevention, the term is broad in terms of, it encompasses things like daycare, mentoring, Boys and Girls Club. And what was happening throughout the country is because of the infrastructure of larger organizations and the capacity to be able to have back office support, structure, and be able to apply for the grants. Typically what was happening was they would suck up all the funding and the crumbs would go to people who actually did violence prevention. And what they would do is call it violence prevention, but it really wasn't. So what we had to do was, in our conversations, we were asked by the White House to, come up with a new term, and we said community violence intervention. And let me start with the intervention part. The intervention doesn't necessarily mean that we, around the precipice, that we always interact after something has happened. Intervention means that an individual has either shown signs of a proclivity to commit a violent act, or have a history of violence. And the way that we are able to identify that is 3 ways. One is through an algorithm called social networking that predicts the next person that's most likely to be a perpetrator or a victim of violence. The second way is through the criminal justice system. Has this person throughout their life showed any indication of being violent or showing aggression? And third, which is the best resource of all, is the community. The community knows who individuals who are on the cusp of committing a violent act. They know who has a temper, who gets in fights all the time. And so we utilize those 3 things, not independently, but cohesively to identify individuals who should be in the program. So community violent intervention, it's a localized ecosystem, and that's what we said. What we wanted to do too is remove the responsibility from one organization solving the problem. If you think about it, in many municipalities, this is where, no disrespect, where government often gets it wrong. They would create a program, or a task force would create a program. They would give it to an organization, but in giving it to the organization, they would put the entire responsibility to bring down violence on that one organization. They would say, well, if violence don't go down, we're going to take away all the money. And what we said, no, that's not it. It's an ecosystem. We still need law enforcement. We still need social service. This one organization that you may give $1 million or $2 million to can't provide homes, stop food deserts, stop bad school. We can't do that. So we said it's still this organization is a part of an ecosystem and fits in neatly, and they work together to do what? To interrelate strategy. So they should have a strategy, programs, people, and shared data systems that work together to address these challenges. It says CVI also has been featured for decades through local-driven, data-informed alternative public safety. And so you say, Chico, if it's an ecosystem, what's the value of an organization, a CVI? The value is immense. Access. They are the people that can access the individuals that are caught in the cycle of violence, whether it's individuals in gangs, individuals doing drugs. They in the community, you know who they is. It would be the same way if you was in school. I often use this example. If I wanted to stop smoking in school, what would be the logical way to do it? It wouldn't be the teachers. It would be to hire a student to be a bathroom guard. If I wanted to stop smoking in the bathroom, the students already know who smoke. They could go right to the smokers and say, hey, don't bring that in my bathroom, because they done been around the people and they know who go in the bathroom and smoke. If you had the teachers, it'd be more of a guessing game trying to figure out who's smoking. So if you think about it, the people that live in the community already know who brings fear and terror into the community. And in the past, what we've done in society is ostracize those people. But what we do now, instead of ostracize them, we invite them in and help them try to develop, help them rid themselves of maladaptive behavior and fit into this pro-social lifestyle by giving them opportunities and resources. So if you think about it, we the first ones to really say, okay, I see what you're going through. We're going to try and love on you and help you turn your life around. And we identify them. And one of the ways that allowed us to do this, we were able to showcase this during COVID. If you think about during COVID, the people that wasn't adhering to the CDC requirements was the individuals that had been ostracized for whatever reason from society. And it was people like Redmond and me and Marcus that were credible messengers that were able to have a conversation with these individuals and convince them, like, no, you should adhere to this. You might be okay, but you might be harming your grandmother, your auntie, the older people who, if they get COVID, it might be fatal. So that was one of that's the main thing we looking at when we think about an organization. They can access and handpick the individuals as opposed to just grabbing a bulk of people, hoping you got the right people and that violence will go down.
Let me say one thing to that right there. I just want to add to this slide. So the part where it says CVI has been featured for decades, and Doc kind of alluded to it. So the work has been, CVI is just getting broad now. It came up through the Biden administration, but prior to that, we have been doing the work since 2003, 2004. And just a little context, as Daryl said, so, you know, we started in Chicago. I used to work for a major organization out there that I helped spearhead their national work. It was called Cure Violence, Ceasefire. And we launched New York, Baltimore. I say this humbly, but I want to let you know, like, we've been doing the work forever. We have places go, New Orleans, Greensboro, North Carolina. These are all people that are South Africa. I was just in St. Lucia, so we do it outside the country. But in the States, as I say, I'll be in Kansas City next week. This method has been working. When you hire the right people from a community who have the relationships and you train them on what it is and attract the data and provide technical assistance, not just a one-time training. The people you mentioned, them was all my colleagues. Dr. Jordan, I love her. I'm not up in myself, trained Dr. Jordan. Alejandro, trained Alejandro. I mean, I like to see that we're expanding more TA capacity. But we've been at this a long time. We're more or less shifting in the consultant side of things. Got two of my colleagues here that do the work. Tony Woods from Chicago, who runs one of the biggest organizations in Chicago that's doing the work, Public Equity, and also our brother Vaughn, who was down here last week, who runs the programs in Washington, D.C. So I just wanted to say it's been highlighted, it's been featured. The difference now, when I was doing sessions like this, 15, 16 years ago, I really had to try to explain it. Now, I could say, man, all you got to do is Google CVI. It's going to come up. There's stories. A whole year without a shooting in the Queensbridge housing project. A whole year without no shooting or homicide in the Cherry Hill projects in Baltimore. I was explaining earlier about in Charlottesville, Virginia, we helped launch that program, the Buck Squad. It stands for Brothers United to Cease the Killing. So there's a lot of reference points now that we didn't have back in the days to try to even sell people on what CVI is. It's gotten to the point now where it is. It's made its way to the White House. We both consulted with the DOJ before they gave out we were one of the consultants for the money that they were giving out for the CVIP money. We helped with that process before the money went out. And I think it's worth noting, because we're an open book, transparent in here. We started out, I'm dean of students. I told you I was a pastor, got my own company, a doctor here, but we both come from lived experience. So we're not nobody that just came. We used to be a part of the problem decades ago, but we were blessed to change our trajectory and do this work. But I think that's important, that we're not just in here trying to just be some academias in front of you. We come from the streets and we changed our life around, and that's why we're effective, because not only can we come in here and speak the language and be critical. Redmond took me out there in the projects out here in Portsmouth, and I blended right in because I understand what they're going through, and I appreciate it when he took me around to meet the individuals potentially that we might be working with, as we're here now to do a training the rest of this week. But just wanted to throw that in there. Go ahead, Doc.
I'm gonna do like, you're a preacher, so I gotta pull it. We gotta get to the slides. Come on, let's go through the slides. Also, these, I could send you, like, these are the definitions or the way that we described it to the Department of Justice. Also, we provided technical assistance to the University of Chicago for all the grantees, the 100 and some grantees throughout the United States, throughout the Department of Justice too. So they asked us would we lead a team to provide TA for them as well. Also, it's to leverage data to interrupt violence that is likely near term, focused on a small number of individuals at the highest risk. What that means, and I'm gonna tell you something that a lot of people don't know. In most communities throughout the United States, less than 1% are the drivers of violence. And the challenge is, how many people here in Portsmouth?
97,000.
So that means it'll be less than 907 people. So when you look at it like that, it's more palatable and manageable, because when you think about trying to do something for 97,000 people, you say one organization, but then when you break it down and say, no, it's less than 1%, you say, can one organization work with 500 people or 400 people? But then you got to think about some people incarcerated, some people got mental. It's palatable, and we want to be surgical and intentional, as opposed to fishing with a net and bringing in people who is not going to impact change. And the way we do it is deploy credible messages to engage. And look, evidence informed. So this is not some rinky-dink we get in this task force. We come up with an idea. Everything we do should be evidence informed, relationship-based strategies that address the underlying risk factors and root causes of violence associated with social, economic inequities tailored through wraparound service and other approaches. maximizing coverage to hard-to-reach populations, optimizing intervention dosage through intensive coordination and communication across these targeted strategies. So what we do is each individual has a caseload about 10 to 15, but they help them meet their needs. 10 people is a lot when a person is dealing with trauma, dealing with substance use disorder, dealing with anger management, unemployment, education challenges. So we try and work with this individual and massage them and help them get the things they need to turn their life around. And that's why we need resources to do it. And the term near term mean the expectation is that we will have results within 24 months. So within 24 months, we expect results. Also, here's a few other things. In the past, a lot of political and policies that have come down, stop and frisk, and many others, 3 strikes, what happens is, and many times it harms the community. So one thing we wanted to do is make sure we didn't harm the community. We didn't call mass incarceration or over surveillance for innocent kids by stereotyping the community by saying this community is bad. So now we put a bum rush on this community, and it's a lot of good. 99% of the people is good in that community. And even the 1% isn't bad, they just misdirected and have maladaptive behavior. But we want to support them with mentorship. But lastly, we want to connect them to supportive services that address the social determinants of health. We want to because at the root, something I want y'all to think about and consider, violence is just one thing, right? It's a resolution or a way to resolve a problem. That's it. People in their mind believe if I respond like this, whatever situation or conflict will go away. And that's why they respond. So what we want to teach them too is alternatives to resolving situations in a non-aggressive way. And the way we do that by is empowering them. Because, good example, if I didn't know no better and Chantel wanted me to be here and I jumped in my car and just started driving, y'all would have been having this meeting and been like, where's Dr. Chico at? But if Chantel say, why didn't you get on the plane? I say, huh? And the next time I flew and I say, wow, now the next time I come to Virginia, I'm gonna get on a plane because it makes no sense to drive. And you probably say, Chico, well, that's a silly example. Well, some of the examples that we use in real life is deconstruct a homicide that started in social media. And in the deconstruction of the homicide, we might ask one of the individuals at the highest risk, at this point, when the guy posted this about your hood, what happens if you block them? And they might be like, huh? If I block them, it's over. So let's look at all the collateral damage. 2 of your friends went to prison, 2 people died. What happened? Man, if I would have just blocked, now we gave them a tool that stops everybody from getting involved, and it might be simple to a sensible person. But to a young person that never thought I could just unfollow or block this person and resolve the issue, now we empowered them to use some in those situations. Let's go to the next slide. This is just the evolution of it. It started in 1995 with the what they call the Boston Miracle with Operation Ceasefire. It evolved to cure violence in 2000, and now we use ecological systems models with an Office of Violence Prevention, because what we begin to understand is that we need everybody to solve the problem. Can't no one group. It's gonna take y'all, it's gonna take the mayor's office, it's gonna take the chief of police, it's gonna take probation, referring people to programs. It takes everybody getting involved and having a vested interest so we can be responsible, when things don't go right, and celebrate together for the successes too.
Let me add something to that right there. So with the word evolution of CVI, and he kind of he spoke on it. Like one of the main evolutions of CVI is that when we first started doing ceasefire and cure violence, even when David Kennedy, who started, criminal justice person that did the Operation Ceasefire, they were like in isolation. Now, and Doc's one of the ones that really highlighted, like, we look at everything from an ecosystem, a holistic approach. So although I feel strong about the Redmonds of the world doing the violence intervention on the ground, you still need all these other wraparound services. You need the other groups to be involved. When we went on, me and him went on tour, kind of like a tour for the ARPA dollars. We were working with Ambassador Rice. We were designated from the White House to go all around the country and talk about how cities could use their ARPA dollars for violence prevention. So we went to St. Louis, Alabama, went all over. But one thing we found out, in every community we went to, the groups on the ground were not getting along. The different agents, and some of them did different things, reentry and everything. But we were able to kind of bring those groups together and talk these things through, because the Bible says a prophet has no honor in his own backyard. So sometimes you do got to have somebody from the outside come to just deal with community, because if it's one person, they think you're trying to one-up them. And so we spend a lot of our time bringing these groups together and say, hey, well, you do reentry work. This person over here does street intervention. You do hospital work. Let's figure out how it works together. And I spoke about this earlier. All the slices of the pie, they're not going to be the same size. And we have to be honest with ourselves about that. And once people realize that their piece of the pie is their piece of the pie, and that slice might not get served until later on, but right now we got this deep dish that I'm using you as an example, Commissioner Redmond, that they're doing right now that needs to be on the plate right now because bullets are flying. Then we'll add in the school stuff. We'll add in the food banks, all the pieces that matter. But that is the evolution, because I was one that all I thought about, street intervention. I don't care nothing about all these other things. I'm just focusing on putting out the violence. But we realized that we were working harder and not smart. Now the country's like, what are we doing to connect everybody? What does it look like? And that's kind of what we specialize in, helping the connection of that ecosystem.
So this is what an ecosystem look like, just an idea. So you would have street intervention, which is what Redmond do. You got to have case management and mentorship. That's that individualized one-on-one with the person to try and find out what they need and what they want. Also behavior modification. I think that was the hugest jump of growth for us, to bring in CBT, CBI, and all those different type of things, because what it allowed us to move from firefighters kept running to the same people putting out fires to now people being able to self-regulate their behaviors. So now we start saying, no, we got to empower people to help them change their behaviors. Of course, wraparound services, workforce development, and some people, I tell people, some people, especially, I love you, man, but some politicians be like, these people just need jobs. No, you give a person that's has a radical behavior a job, they gonna go and tear their workplace up. So no, we gotta get with them and prep them on how to show up at a job and help them reframe and reshape their mentality so that they can work and others can work behind them. Then, of course, we believe in hospital programs where individuals are able to create a safe space so doctors can do their work, but also to mediate things at the hospital and work with individuals in the golden hour. School-based, of course, and then survivor service, work with individuals who've been harmed, whether they've been harmed or their parents are going through the trauma from losing the child or their siblings. Another thing, we want to make it a permanent part of a public safety plan, meaning the worst thing you can do, I believe it should be a part of a grant, but it should move into a county, a city, or a state budget. Because you think about it, in the beginning, you get sick in the country, everybody looking for a town doctor. But if we went out into the country, I don't care if it's Alabama, Little Rock, Arkansas, Tupelo, Mississippi, if you get sick and you pass out, what you calling? 911, you calling for what? A paramedic. And that's what they're like, paramedics. They not no doctor, but they the paramedics. They the first responders on scene. And then it might rise to the level where you need law enforcement would be the equivalent to doctors. But you want, if a paramedic come out, if they could resolve it, you don't get in the car and it's all good. But if it breached the level where they can't do it, they take you to the hospital. And then what? When the doctors step in, the paramedics out of it. And that's the same way with CVI. Once the law enforcement step in, CVI out of it. But it gotta be a staple and it gotta be a level of commitment, but we gotta hire the right people. It gotta be a commitment to these communities that's been ravaged throughout the United States to make them healthy. That's the whole thing. We want it, and when you put it in the budget and you put it a part of the ecosystem, then all of us feel like we got buy-in. Another thing, also everyone must participate in addressing violence, and it said in order to impact system change, we need continuous funding. That's the main thing. You gotta, another thing too, right? This the only thing. Everywhere, I can say this, everywhere Marcus and I, and it's been over 20 to 30 cities, implementing a program, we seen success. And I know people be like, that's hard to believe, no failure. No, because it's not because we rocket scientists. Some people out there won't help and they never had an opportunity to have it. So we gonna see a decline because it's some people just ain't never been offered the opportunity to have help and access to resources. Where we see a large decline is where people really do the work. So if you figure, like, if we offered it to 10 people, 2 to 3 gonna be like, man, I don't wanna live like this. I want it to change anyway. This is an opportunity. The work comes in with the other 7 to 8. That's where you put the work in. But some people are just tired and been looking for an opportunity to change their life. So on their own free volition, they gonna come, but the work is for the 7 to 8 for them people that's been embedded in this lifestyle, and we trying to get them up and ain't sick and tired now. So it is a lot of work involved with that. So that's what we do. But by giving the opportunity and by being persistent, being out there every day, you know, showing people you really care and love them, and being in the community and being a resource for the community and be a model of change. The reason why credible messengers are so powerful is because I can identify with somebody who's been where I've been, and when I see them come up out of it, it's something in my spirit say I can do it too, especially if they from the same place and was in the same spot that I was in. And that's what really gives them the vitality to fight and also the resilience to do so. I think that's the last slide. And now we could take questions.
All right, thank you, Dr. Chico, and thank you, Mr. McAllister. There were so many points that you made that stuck with me throughout your time of sharing with us. And so I'm gonna actually defer to my colleagues to take any questions first as I kind of gather through all of my thoughts.
Sure. So,
Yes, sir.
thank you for an excellent presentation. It's funny, I was nodding rather emphatically because you were saying some points that I've been saying, echoing some stuff that I've been saying to some of my colleagues. I call it the 95-5 rule. You called it the 99-1 rule, and I think, you know, maybe the number somewhere between that 1% and 5% in our city, but that is exactly right. It's laser-focused efforts on trying to you know, get to the people who are disproportionately causing so many ripple effects, you know, across the city. The one overarching question that I had, because what you're describing is honestly, it might be different terms, but you're describing something very similar to what the military, or at least the Coast Guard, calls the incident command system. You're doing incident command, and the question is, who is that person in these examples where you've been going around, or who is that group when you say we are able to do this, we are able to do that structurally? Who is the person who's looking across the landscape, looking at all those different factors, looking at the algorithm that you're describing, and saying, we feel that this is the best intervention at the correct time in the timeline. Now's the right time for whatever it is. I agree with everything you're saying. I'm just wondering, literally, when the rubber meets the road, who is that in a typical city?
Okay, I answered it. So I said there's 3 pathways to recruitment. I said the algorithm, I said the criminal justice system, and I said the community.
Right.
Typically, you could get a social scientist. I know it's research institutions, and they could do analytical predictability and say this person is the next person based upon their behaviors to be.
Right.
It's a theory out there. One of my good friends out of Northwestern had created this social network, and he did it when he was at Yale. His name Andy Papacristo. So he said, he created an algorithm that based upon this algorithm, these people are the next person that's most likely to be a victim or perpetrator of violence.
Right.
Now that one is, I don't want to say it's a hypothesis, but it's based upon the data of this person's behavior. Through this person could have had a lot of delinquencies in schools, been in a lot of fights, and based upon this person is most likely to be an individual that's going to be a perpetrator of violence. But also the criminal justice system. If a person just got out of jail for armed robbery or on probation for aggravated assault, we don't got to guess if he's violent and if he get into a situation, what's going to happen. So we would already, that one is hard and concrete. We can go to this person and try and get them into services or help them get a job and help redirect their thinking even before they come back to the community.
Yeah.
And also with individuals in the community. Just think about when you went to school. Did you go to school here?
Not in this city, no.
Okay, whatever city you went to. It was people at school. You knew who the hell to stay away from.
Sure.
You knew who the jocks was. You knew who were the athletes. So if you live in the community, you already know, like, this person ain't to be messed with. And I'm just saying, what people won't say verbally, in our communities, we know who feared in the community too. It ain't no guessing, because even if you get into it with, just say if it's Keith, I'm gonna just use you as an example. I might say, Daryl, I had an argument. He said, damn, Keith's something else, man. You better call Keith. Keith don't play. So those people in the community who has sparked fear, them the people we really want to go after, and we want to change, because the thing about this is the people that invoke fear have people who they influence too. Sure. So really by changing Keith, all the people he influenced can potentially, it's called, in research, I know you're probably familiar with it, it's called a snowball effect. When you start recruiting one person from that group that has them behaviors and they see value in it, like, man, instead of doing this dumb stuff, I could make the same amount of money without the anxiety of going to jail for the rest of my life. So they gonna help you recruit too, because they gonna tell people, like-minded people that they hang with, like, whether it's a gang or clique or whatever you want to call it, hey, Marcus, you want to go over here, man? They giving us $200 a week to do this. So those are some of the ways that you're gonna get your target population and you're gonna see a decline in it.
And I agree with everything you're saying. What I'm trying to figure out is literally nuts and bolts. Is there like a Monday morning meeting where everyone sits down, and who's the everyone who sits down and says, this is what we found to be the biggest problem since the weekend. This is what we want to fix by this Thursday.
So hold on.
Okay.
So what we described there as an organization. So a street intervention organization have a meeting every day. Good. They have 2 meetings every day. First, they have a briefing and a debriefing. Excellent. The briefing in the morning, you're going to figure out who are the individuals we need to be targeting, what's the hot spots, what neighborhoods are flaring up, are there any violent incidents going on, are there any beefs, and they're going to use the team, which should be comprised of individuals from different neighborhoods and different groups, so that you have representation from throughout the neighborhoods that are vulnerable. Yep. So each one is telling you what's going on in the community, and then you could be strategic in where you go and where you canvas, and how you deal with priority conflicts.
I want to add, and so and Von's here with us, and Jovan trains with us. So this week with Redmond's team, the one we're going to be training, we were doing a mapping exercise.
Right.
And we break down how we map out our community. We get maps and digitally as well too. And I like it because we even humanize it. And he's going to teach them how we put the data on our maps. And it might be the date the person died, a picture, so we can familiarize ourselves with that. So like Doc said, we're doing debriefings every day. We have a staff meeting once a week, but this is all stuff we teach in training. Like these are formulas, this is the stuff, we're not just saying, hey, you credible, go out there and stop it. We 40 hours of training, another 40 hours of training, constantly technical assistant. Yep. So they're doing the little things, like he's saying, having those meetings, breaking down the map. We take a lot of stuff out of military. Yeah. We take a lot of stuff that's something that law enforcement do. We just apply it to our community perspective. Yeah. How can we stop things by, well, this is where they're doing this over here, we got this over here, and we break down the maps regularly every day. And we track the data. So we have, in some of our cities that we work with, we help them to track the data through the database so they can constantly see where they've done the most mediation. We track in every community event we do. If you're in a gang city, we want to know all the different backgrounds of those participants that we're signing up.
Excellent. I appreciate this. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great question. Nothing is accidental. Like with the power mapping, but also with the strategy, we want to know like what's in the community, what's the hot spots, how many homicides have happened in this area. Right. Also, the person that's leading the community will have conversations with law enforcement about what do you see rising, where do you see an uptick in violence. So now we strategic and even where we're going. So once we get one community calmed down, we don't want to just keep going over here and things calm down some. We might say, yeah, but it's spiking a little bit over here. So now we might start canvassing over there and having a larger presence over there and talking to community members over there to try and make our presence known, to be in front of the situation as much as possible.
Yep. And then I guess if I can ask two more questions. One would be what, if any, input in most states or locations where you go are you allowed to get, and do you get, from school resource officers or school officials or other law enforcement from within the schools or school officials?
I'll touch on a piece of that. So one of the things that over the years, we worked in a few schools in Chicago. In Philadelphia, we're in 6 schools now, like doing CVI work. But the problem is that obviously when you have a background, most of the staff we hire a background, right. So they're not able. So here's what we did in Philadelphia. It goes back what Dr. Chico just said. We hired the credible students that might have not went off to college and they left and they were like 22 now, but they still had relationships, and we put them in the school. They came to our meeting they would come to, like, let's say they come to, I'm using Redmond as an example and everything. They would come to that meeting, but their job would be the school, and then we would share that information about who know these students, and maybe some of the staff might be the uncles or know. So that's the way we kind of operate with the school, because we had the barrier of having a background. So we found credible ex-students to be and trained them on the same stuff, let them go through the same process, except they were able to operate in schools. And school work is a big thing right now going on in this work. So.
Excellent, thank you. And then the last question I had was getting involved with folks who are currently in custody or currently incarcerated prior to them getting out again. Can you just talk a little bit about how that's worked in practice and how you're able, if you're able, to keep them from falling off that cliff once they get out and get back among the same people, places, and things? I'm
gonna say that I love your questions, because the broader the broader or the larger the ecosystem, then that means we got to have a little bit more mustard on the hot dog. Yeah. I was the executive director of something called Ready National, Ready Chicago, and Ready National, and one of the components we had was Ready Reentry. And what we did was we talked to individuals once they got within 12 to 6 months from coming home, and we tried to have focus groups. We had programs inside the institutions with individuals 12 months to come home, and we talked to them about opportunities. First of all, about CBT and CBI, about changing the way they think, right. You know, and letting them know you can't resolve things the same way you did, or you're gonna get the same results. Right. But more importantly, we talked to them about opportunities. So we wanted them to get primed, get the IDs, and get things to get them on the trajectory to coming home and getting a job. And what we did already had a case manager waiting on them when they return to help them with their transition and coming home. So that's one of the things we were able to do. But that would be that would be another component of the ecosystem, which would be, just say, Portsmouth reentry, where we will work with individuals, on the cusp of coming home 6 to 12 months, and then based upon individuals coming back, we could get them ready for society.
Yeah, let me just add to that right there. So the DOJ, well beyond this, like 10, 15 years ago, they came to visit us in Chicago when I was working with Ceasefire, which turned to Cure Violence. And they said something that I've always known. CVI work, before it was called CVI, we are like, this is one of the best to stop recidivism, bar none in the country. I'm talking about being staff in the work. What I fell in love about this work is how it changed the life of the staff. They became taxpayers. That's why I wanted you to know our background and how we changed and we didn't recidivate and go back. And this work, that's what blew me away. I looked around the table when we did a violence interrupter meeting, and I saw all these individuals who I knew their past, and now they were doing this. Now, you're going to have some situations where, things happen and people, just like with any career, but our numbers as far as people not going back to jail once they start doing this work is up there, because it's like an accountability thing. You don't want to mess this up when you get inside this work. And I'm saying something that the country can attest to. Once they get in this, it changes their life. It's bigger than what you used to do, and you feel like, I don't want to mess this up, because you look around the table and it's a chance for all the staff. They're the first participants. When we train tomorrow, we're going to say, look to your left and right. Make sure your staff don't fall back into anything, because we can't afford that. Right. So that's another part of people coming out. We hire them if they got the right credibility. They're the prime people that we can put in this space, because they can speak to it.
Yep. Thank you. This is all about breaking that cycle, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cullen. You talked a lot about the ecosystem and active participation in the ecosystem. The main question that came from the discussion is, how do you identify the size of each slice of the pie, right? And I say that because one of the things that I like about this commission, this task force, and something different that our city did that other cities may or may not have done, is everybody on this task force either is from an organization, but we're all members of the community, right? We're not elected officials. Sure. In other cities, it was set up with just strictly elected officials or city officials or city agencies, and I'm sure we're going to bring them on at some point. But I said all that to say is, like, we all hold a slice of the pie here, but even outside of this space, the organizations that should be doing the work in the streets, the organizations that are going to be doing the work going forward, they all own a slice of the pie. How do we identify the size of each slice of the pie going forward and really starting off with this work?
Oh, that's a great question. But me and the chief, he probably, he done stepped out. Well, I had an opportunity to talk to the chief in depth earlier today, and I explained it to him. And just want to bring the nerd part of me. You got to look at the data. You got to look at the data to see, like, where violence is happening. Is it concentrated? How frequent? How much? How many people? Because, let me give you an example. In a residential area, it might be impoverished, but the violence might be relatively low. Where in an area where it's more concentrated, where, like, just say a project area or row houses, of course you have to invest more, because it's people on top of people, and violence is more prevalent over here than you would over here where violence is relatively low. So we would use quantitative data to determine not only what slice of the pie you get, but where we emphasize or where we put our intentionality on pouring funding into to change the entire city, if that makes sense, as opposed to just saying everybody get the same amount, and then in some places there's no violence already there. So you would look and say, okay, here's where it's a larger amount of violence at, or violence increase or influx of violence. And what we do too is we try and look 3 to 5 years, because really violence could have spiked over here because of an incident. Now it's going back and forth, where typically this is the place where it's more violent. So that's what we would do, look at the data and say, okay, based upon this, let's start here and then scale. But you know what, Jalen, we want to be flexible too, because the hopes is that we would bring violence down here, and then you know what we could do? We could repurpose funding to communities where it might be, need a little bit more support.
Let me add to that. So I agree with everything you said, but now I'm gonna come from a different angle with it. Not just the violence piece. Slices that. So you know what? We're trying to stop violence, and there's gonna be some people that you guys are up there. These gonna take some hard decisions. You cannot want to stop violence and think you're gonna please everybody. This is not like. Listen, we want. That's why I say the ecosystem. There's pieces. There's the reentry part. There's the survivor part he put up there. There's the street intervention that deals right now. It takes some hard truths to know. Like the amount I said this earlier. The amount of people that you might need for a street intervention team might be 8 or 9 people because they got to go all over. It's different from a survivor group that may only need 4 or 5, versus a hospital responder. You may only need 2 to go in the hospital. So it's some hard truths that got to be made. There's no way we can please everybody and say everyone gets. So there's no algorithm for that. That's just pure going like, listen, we want to focus on this piece because we know it needs 7 staff. They need a location. Some it depends what the wraparound services are, because I know where you were going, like all the different constituents that want a piece of the pie that necessarily ain't even doing hardcore violence intervention, but they're part of the ecosystem and they matter. The school program matters. I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but we got to stop the violence now. If you looked on that list, we started with street intervention. I'm not going to sugarcoat. We biased. If we want to stop violence right now, let's deal with the group that's going to deal with those that got the. Because if you don't deal with that, all the resources and people coming to your after school program are going to mean nothing. You got to stop the violence now, and then we can plug in all other pieces and say, here go, I'm just making up numbers. And they made up numbers because usually to do a violence prevention site, you need anywhere from $750,000 to $1 million. That's for office, everything. But a person that's doing a 3-man reentry program might not need $750,000 to $1 million, and they might not want to hear that. And then, well, they got this amount, but it's going to take hard truths that you got to give people, because we ain't selling tennis shoes. This ain't. We always say this ain't Adidas versus Nikes. This requires hard decisions, and you got to stick with it because it's about saving a life. If I got to save a life and some community members be pissed off with me, then so be it. Eventually, we'll find that some more money for you, but we ain't in this to please everybody so they can all have an equal share of the pie.
Oh, I wanted to say this, and I don't know if I missed. When I said the data, I meant to find out the location. It starts. The most important thing is the boots on the ground. Is the people that can actually access the individuals that's doing the shooting, carrying the guns, involved in all the garbage. All the other stuff that we got up there, the ecosystem, the ones that we got to get money to, we add them on as we get the money. Exactly. Yeah. But if you ain't got the person that's going to actually get the shooter to get the services, then the people that got the services ain't going to be doing nothing. Exactly. So we got to go get the people that's entangled in the cycle of violence. So that's the first, that's at the core. Like street intervention is at the core. So we got to go get them. But I'm talking about which organization get it throughout the city would be determined upon what violence is. But street intervention is at the core. We got to get that. And then based upon how much excess money we could add those other services. But let me say this too, and I even talked to the mayor about this today. But some of the services, we don't need a damn dime. Because it's already city agencies and county agencies. It's already getting your ID. It's already SNAP. It's already housing. It's just giving that organization access to expedited services so that they can access these people. And let me say this too, right? We talking about money, right? The reason why street intervention, number one, is because every homicide costs anywhere from $800,000. No, every shooting, non-fatal shooters is $800,000 to $1.5 million of societal costs, meaning law enforcement, hospital, prosecutors, probation, all of that. Every homicide costs about $2.5 million. The people that's gonna stop the homicides and shootings are the people that's accessing the people that's doing it. So it's an investment. Look, even if you had a horrible ass organization doing it, and they saved, look, let's say they did 10 mediation the whole year, which is horrible. Ain't no way they should do 10.
Right.
They done saved you they done saved the city $25 million. So it's a return on the investment that's great. This ain't, I think sometimes we get it twisted. We look at it like charity. Who we gonna give this money to? No.
Invest.
Why wouldn't you invest your money in something that you're gonna invest $2 million and get $25 million back in a year. If you think about it like this, and the more robust you invest, then the more you can expect to get back. But if you don't invest, but here's the catch, if you don't invest nothing, some people want to invest $500,000 stuff. You gotta, in order for a car to run, it gotta have wheels.
That's right. And
You can't say, you know what, Chico, you sold me this car and it ain't running. I said, well, you didn't give me no money to buy no wheels and tires. You paid for you got everything, but ain't no wheels on it. So you gotta build it out in a way where you can hold it accountable and it could be, able to function regularly.
My colleague, hey, Tony, real quick, come here real quick, family. Because he said something, I want you to touch on this, because he runs one of the bigger sites in Chicago on this topic we're saying.
Yeah, they kind of touched on it. Sorry, my name is Tony Woods. I'm the founding director of Public Equity. They kind of touched on it, but I think from a organizational standpoint, it's about capacity. So you have to implement some funding to build up capacity, because not only do we want credible messengers, we want credible accounting practices as well, right? We want people to be fiscally responsible. So I was listening to your question, and I just wanted to add that. Sorry to disrupt y'all flow, but I had to put that out there.
You with us?
Yep.
We're here together. So I was glad you could add that to the table.
Thank you. That was really helpful. Thank you. Yes.
One more question. You'd mentioned you used the phrase public health emergency, and I've used that phrase repeatedly. And I'm curious, in your own experiences, and I include your entire team there, where, if any, has the pushback come from the use of that phrase, or how successful has that been in communicating to people that if this was bee stings that was killing people, if this was bad seafood that was killing people, if there was some other thing that was causing people to have to be put in the back of ambulances, we'd call it a public health emergency. Where has the pushback come, or where's the resistance come to using that phrase and that ideology to try to address this public health
I know he can address
emergency?
it. I'm just going to say, well, one of the pushback is the administration we're in right now. We had the Surgeon
Right.
General announce that this was a public health crisis for the first time, I don't know in how many years, and we knew it was.
Yes.
That, for him even saying that got it got stumped. It wasn't no more issue, because with this administration now said, no, we're not using that term.
Right.
But with regards to community, believe it or not, when I first started using the public health term, the people in the streets and were speaking about like how we look at violence and treat it from, because our founder at the time when I worked was an epidemiologist, I was surprised at how many people in the community understood that.
Sure.
So there wasn't we didn't get a lot of pushback from the people that needed it in the communities. It's come, the most I've seen in document has been recently. And I've been at 20-something years, and this thing has grown. I remember Dr. Slucken spoke at Congress, because, he's one of the leaders on the public health approach, not the only, but one of them. And he spoke at Congress and was speaking more about the term. And then there was a thing that people said, well, just call it a health approach. They wanted to take out the public part, but it's in the community. We're dealing with public safety. This is a public health approach. And so I just like to add that.
I'm a scientist.
Go for it.
The number one cause of death among black men is homicide.
Here we go.
The number one cause of death for black teens is homicide.
Yep.
It used to be car accident. So I don't want to tell you who the statistics said. It's the
Right.
number one cause of death.
Yeah.
Just think about it.
But he said, who's the pushback? That's the pushback.
No, first he asked me like, who would say something different, but I'm showing him the proof, like
Yep.
the number one cause of death is homicide.
Yep.
People that push back is people that's not black who it's not impacting. If it's not impacting you, you don't feel it. Even, and not just people that's not black, but people that's affluent too. If you black and you live in a neighborhood where violence doesn't happen, then you don't feel it. It's not a priority. Taxes is.
Right.
So people really are impacted by what affects them.
Right.
But the proof is, even among black women, the number 2 cause of death for black women right now is homicide.
Wow.
So when you look at the statistics, like, and at one point it was car accidents. At one point it was cancer. Now somebody actually shooting you. So when people push back, it's erroneously. That's the point I want to make. When they pushing back, they want to make an excuse for not investing in black lives or minority lives or individuals in vulnerable communities. So like, that's why I wanted to, make sure before I misspoke, look at the evidence, but I knew like especially among men, but among black women and among teens.
And I'll tell you too, another pushback, and you don't seem to have it here because you got a chief that understands, but it has been law enforcement because they come from a criminal justice mind state.
Right.
So they don't see. When I went to a conference in Orlando where this is the first time I've ever been to a conference that had this much law enforcement from all across the nation. It was like the gang summit or whatever the case may be, and we had social workers there, and there was a lot of law enforcement there. And we went to every session because we wanted to learn from law enforcement. None of the law enforcement came in our sessions about looking at this from a public health approach. Because I think that they have been so much looking at it from a criminal justice standpoint. And even, let's go back to Dr. Chico said. When you think about the crack era and stuff was a criminal justice thing. Opioids has become a public health approach because of the different people it's affecting. And so the way things get treated, the resources they pour into it, it's going to boil down to what he's saying, who's being affected by it. But I'm not saying all law enforcement, but you wanted some people that give pushback in the country as well. And law enforcement has been one of them that's given us pushback. Because they don't think public health approach to violence. Well, we criminal justice. If you messed up, but you don't realize there's things that led up to a person doing what they did. It's not excusing them, but we want to get to the root cause so we can stop it from in the future and not just lock the person up and no study and get the background to be able to stop something. So,
So full disclosure, and I will openly admit this, 40-year law enforcement officer here, right? My cousin was the head of the American Association of Family Physicians. And probably about 15 years ago, he got me at some conference that we were at, and he said, what do you think of this as a public health approach? And I said, you're out of your mind. What are you talking about? People just need to follow the law. Right. I understand coming from that culture, but I've also independently reached my own decisions just through watching and saying, the number of human beings that are dying because of a particular thing, if you strip away all the prejudices and all the biases, let's just say if this was the same number of people who are dying in bathtub slip and fall accidents, we would be having a major, summit on bathtub safety or something like that. We'd be doing something about it. And then we have to look at the why. Why is it that why are we accepting this as normal? Why are we accepting this as acceptable? And people need to look themselves in the mirror and ask that question why. So, thank you.
So, coincidentally, I am one of the keynotes at the IACP, the International Association of Chief of Police.
I thought you were going to say you're at the bathtub safety conference. Right?
So they gonna hear a different spiel this year. They keep pushing me to come speak. They want me to speak. I'm gonna speak truth to power, but really not. And I'm gonna say this too, right? Even though I'm a person from the community, I still acknowledge and respect what law enforcement brings to the table. And people say, well, Chico, are you 100%, CVI? Yeah, but if somebody breaking in my damn house, I'm calling the police. I'm not calling no CVI. I'm not calling if it's an active shooter, I'm not calling CVI. I'm calling the police. So don't get it twisted. Right. We know law enforcement got a role, but also, if you care about law enforcement, you won't have them doing things that's outside the scope of their work too. Because they not no damn social workers or got time to be trying to figure out why Keith and Eugene got a beef and how to get to the bottom of it. We need them out there stopping serious crime.
Right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Ms. Essems.
Thank you. So I heard you say that one of the things your work covers is working with agencies to collaborate. How do you get the buy-in of agencies, in particular government agencies, to believe in the work, trust the process, and buy into it, to even want to work collaboratively with boots on the ground agencies or people who have a lived experience?
It's a term called collective efficacy, and you probably familiar with it. Yeah. And what that is getting everybody to get a shared mission or a shared goal. It's the same way, how do you get, if you were starting an organization, How do you get the janitor on up to the CEO to believe in the mission of the organization? So I think the first thing we do is find like missions and goals that we all can agree to. Like, do we all want to stop children from dying? I think you got to start somewhere where everybody can agree, and then you talk about roles. I know y'all got a college football team. Everybody doing this, Virginia. I know y'all got one. The lineman might think he the most important person, the guard, if it's the running back. But I don't care how good the running back, the quarterback, if everybody don't play football is the ultimate team sport. You might say, man, he ain't nothing but a lineman. Let him not block. So like you got to help them understand like everybody plays an integral role. And even the people that say, I don't want to mess with system impact people. Okay, well, you go out there and recruit the shooters. You go knock on their door and go into these places when they high and they drunk and they don't want to hear it, and you have a conversation with them, sometimes at 11, 12 at night when they talking about going to do some foolishness. You don't have the relationships to do that. And that's something you can't, I'm gonna tell you something too, right? People who are credible messengers have an innate ability or superpower that nobody else has. Right now, if it was a guy, right, talking about killing somebody, he on drugs, he got a gun, and he talking crazy, one of his friends got shot, and I told you to go over there, you're gonna think I lost my damn mind. Because most people, when people pull out a gun, what we do? We run. But credible messengers still walk up to this person, still have a conversation with them, and be assertive. That's the difference. And unarmed. You can't teach that. You can't teach that. But if you've been adapt or been in this area or community or in these environments long enough, you're not afraid. But a regular person gonna be scared. They're gonna be like, I'm not going to talk to that boy. I'm going in the house and shut the windows and everything. Pull down the curtain. So those are the things you can't teach. And that's what we got access to that population, and we the ones that can pull them out of that thing that other people can't. And we can identify the people who actually are doing the harm in the community. Because it might be a group of people and only 3 of them really the people that's causing harm.
And it's not easy. So,
Exactly.
Going back to it's not easy. There's no way I'm going to sit here and say, we've been in a lot of communities, and a lot of communities have groups that don't want to work with this group, and they don't want to work with credible messengers or whatever, but it's a process. And one of the things that we share with the mayor and the chief today, that if you all are going to even entertain building out CVI, it does take a level of patience. Yeah. And we've seen it. We're not just making this up. It takes time. Because people even CVI workers, it takes time for them to trust everybody else, because now they're doing this work and they're not used to doing this work. So it's a level of patience, time, and having outsiders. I'm not saying that to big us up, but I'm saying you can't, when you're trying to bring people together, it's hard to do it internally because everyone thinks we don't have nothing to gain. I don't even know all the groups. And so if I meet with the groups or get a chance to meet them, we're going to meet them with an open spirit and talk to them. And we trust our ability. We've been around a lot of groups. I'm not saying we're the most charming individuals, but I know one thing. We can touch somebody and talk to them. And we've had people say, man, we don't want to do nothing. DC wanted to run us out until we got there and talked to them. But they don't know what you bringing people in from Chicago or whatever. You just got to talk to people, speak their language, speak to community. They got little gripes and stuff. I would love to meet with any of them. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to get mad that they say, nah, I ain't working with Redmond and them. I don't like that. That's fine. But over time, we'll melt them down.
And the second thing is the way the relationship turns around is consistency. Because you might think he ain't gonna do nothing, he out there faking. But a week went by, he doing good. A month went by. A year. After a while, the consistency is what changes a person, man. Think about somebody who pissed you off and you say that person ain't gonna never change. What makes you realize they change is the consistency of positive behavior.
Yep. And presence.
Another thing, what Tony Wood said, I think is a fear of some government entities too, is the credible accounting practices and trusting that the money is being allocated or spent properly because of
Let me,
the people that are within the work. But I'm just putting it out there.
yeah, I know.
So I.
Let me say this too, right? And I talked to Redmond and I told him, the way you could interrupt that is get a damn fiscal agent. Cause all they gonna get then is they check. Or it's gonna have to be some oversight. Now, and I tell people this, I teach them this, and I teach them this at the school. You mess up that money, you going to jail. Because it's misappropriation of funds. Am I lying? Don't I tell you? I say, that's not your, because some people think and I tell them, nonprofit, you don't make no money. You're not gonna get rich on nonprofit. And another thing, I want to say this to y'all in the mildest way without y'all kicking me out. That ain't y'all money neither. That's the taxpayers' money. So if you want to live in a community and be safe, you rather give it to some people that's gonna make you feel safer. But what they got to understand too, and I tell people, I work at a nonprofit. If I raise $10 million, I don't get a dollar raise. And that's what they got to understand. The money goes right back into the program. And I told him today, I say, you need somebody astute with the back office. Because you don't even really want the people who out there worried about working on the ground, worried about writing reports, getting data, doing all that. You got to hire the right people. And most organizations, I'm going to say this too, right? No disrespect. It's insulting too if you got a damn organization and you got somebody doing accounts and payroll that ain't got no background in finance or account.
Sure.
It can't be Johnny. It got to be somebody that know how to do a ledger, that know how to do account, make sure everybody get paid, do indirect, all those other things. So yeah, you gotta hire, when you think about an organization, you gotta hire the right people. And when you post positions, they gotta be qualified for it. So like, the way you get around that is have the right people in the positions to do the right job. Even if you hire, like, everybody at a CVI organization ain't credible messengers, just the frontline staff. The executive staff are professionals who have backgrounds in the things that they're going to do, just like any other job. Just like Red Cross, just like what? Amway, all them other nonprofit, Boys and Girls Club. The people that's teaching swim class ain't the people that's doing the accounting. And that's what come on. So we gonna make sure they hire the right people to do the accounting and all that other stuff. What you said made you.
Thank you, Ms. Essems. Any other questions or comments down this end? Just as a quick follow-up to what Ms. Essems was saying, and I don't want to be repetitive, but I think it's important to ask all questions. On the point about motivation of getting the investment, getting the buy-in, not just with organizations, but with members of the community, right? Especially if one of our goals is to go in and do a community needs assessment, but also a community strengths assessment, which was pointed out earlier, which I think is just as important, like you said. How do you, that motivating factor of bringing in the community and getting them involved and helping them understand why this is even important in the first place? How do you even start with that part? You name mission, goal, all those things are important, but where do you even start with that?
You know what? You ain't got to start with it. And I want you to take your suit and tie off and just be real. If you live in a community where you worried about if you're going to get shot every day, that's important to you. And if somebody's saying they want to get together to make you feel safe, which is the first principle of trauma-informed care, who not going to be all for it? Who don't want to live in a healthy community? So I think it's, in a way, it's insane to believe. It's how you approach the community members too. It's all in the approach. If you approach them in love and say, hey, you know what, we tired of you living like this. We finna come together and come up with some resolutions, and we gonna utilize, even in research, they utilize individuals to go do the interviews that has connectivity to the people that they interviewing, that have cultural competency and cultural sensitivity. So of course you're gonna use a native to talk to somebody and tell them like, hey, here's what we're gonna do. We doing a landscape analysis to look at our strengths, or a SWOT analysis to look at our strengths, our areas of opportunities, and also things that might challenge what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and then I want to add to that too. So one of the things that we do, we come to cities and we do an assessment, right? And simple as like town hall meeting, we show stuff because some people are visual. You know, we showing them documentary. There's several documentaries that me and him both got documentary. But outside even us, there's other documentary. I can show you the work being done on the streets of Baltimore. I can show you the work being done in Kansas City. I'm not just me talking about it. I can show it. It come to life. Communities are the same all over the country. I don't care if you're South, West, East Coast. We all share the same, we speak the same language. You just gotta set up these different forms, which we would love to be helped with. Like, let's do some community events. Let's do what we're doing in here. Let us be in front of the community. We're not scared of no community. We want to talk with them. Let's do a cookout. Let's talk. They gotta learn about what CVI is, and you have to teach them and show them and get them to buy in. I did a thing in Atlanta one time, and I spoke, and Meek Mill spoke right behind me, and then we were in Atlanta. Meek Mill was just there, and they used Meek Mill to speak. Afterwards, and this is a guy today, trains with me in Chico, afterwards I walked outside, the community ran up on me and said, we heard what you said up there and explained about the program. You need dip. And y'all, Redmond knows dip. He said, you need dip. I said, well, where dip at? And they went and got this gentleman and brought him to me because he already had a reputation of wanting to help his community. We showed him the documentary. They ran after me and said, we like what we heard, but we need you to get the people. And we got dip on board, and we started the program in Atlanta. Now we got like 7 programs in Atlanta that are doing CVI. So that's just a small way to do it. Like, I would build with the community. I would do some community events. I would show some documentaries. They're going to show his documentary this Thursday. I'm sure it's open to the community to come see it, right? So those little things like that, they may seem minute, but they go a long way when it comes to communities understanding what this is. A lot of times they feel isolated. They feel like it's too way up here. We don't always be way up here. We meet them where you at and let them know we the same, and this is what it took. So,
Last thing I want to say is we hire from the community. So it look different when we say, hey, working in this community, gonna be people from the community. So not only are we coming with resolutions and solutions, but we gonna hire from the community. So really you solving your own problem. So they like the fact that somebody live down the street from them or somebody they know is getting a job, and they the ones working in their community.
Thank you. Ms. Essems.
I don't know if I misunderstood your question, but were you asking about like citizens or like the people who actually working?
I think in follow-up
both?
to your question,
Oh.
it was both. It was
Okay.
really both, and it was just to add on, and they answered. They answered my question.
My answer
Yeah.
applies to both.
Yeah,
too.
it applies to both.
Even the
Yeah.
groups. Well, I love to do a session with the groups, so they got to see what this is too.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, hearing none. Thank you both. We really appreciate your time this evening. We're grateful for the time you spent it in Portsmouth, and we really appreciate the discussion, so thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
you.
again.
Thank you.
All right, our next agenda item is announcements, and I'll get Ms. Matthews to make, as you mentioned, the announcement from earlier. We're not one to be outdone, but you know, this is my brother. This documentary is awesome.
But I was just, my documentary, they just showed it Martha's Vineyard last week. You know, it ain't ready for viewing yet, but just hold tight, I'm gonna get it to y'all. We will be bringing you back. That's right, that's right.
Thank you, Ms. Matthews. Thank you, Mr. McAllister. Thank you. I think the last thing I was going to mention, Ms. Matthews, is that several members of the commission mentioned that they still don't have access to their emails. And so I wanted to say that out loud. And then also we had a previous discussion a few meetings back about making sure that members of the community had access to our email addresses. And I'll say it out loud because my grandmother works for the city of Portsmouth, and there's been several members of the community emailing her and trying to get in contact with me because her email is out there. And so I just want to make sure I say that out loud as well, is that we're working on trying to make sure that everybody has access to our email accounts so we can communicate properly with the citizens of Portsmouth. So I want to say that out loud.
Can I follow up and
Yes.
ask, well, we can talk later. Are you trying to use the app to get the email?
No.
Or the internet?
The internet, the browser.
And it's still not?
No.
Okay.
No. Thank you, Ms. Matthews.
Mine is working.
Yours is working.
I'll go around after and see where everyone is. I thought it was resolved, but I guess not.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yes.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just a note that on your agenda, it says the next meeting is September the 8th. We have a city council work session that Monday night. It's the Monday before the second Tuesday. So we probably need to adjust again the meeting date. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. All right. So we need to vote on moving that date, but maybe we need to find out when the chambers will be available first. So we will circle back to that, and Ms. Matthews will follow up with us on getting a new date for the September meeting. All right, thank you. And one last acknowledgement. I want to acknowledge that today our police department announced that they are nationally recognized and accredited. And I want to acknowledge our chief of police and our members of our law enforcement today and give them a round of applause for that. So thank you, Chief, for all that you do. I just want to make that acknowledgement. All right. At this point, there's not any other comments. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right, all in favor? Have a good evening, everyone.